Today we are going to see about a poem, Autumn Song by W.H. Auden. So, Winston Auden is considered one of the finest English language poets of the 20th century, occupying a position among the likes of T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound. He was remarkably prolific and experimental in his poetry. His early stage was characterized by an Eliot like modernism. His middle stage incorporated Marxist and Freudian themes, and his late stage was more conversational and dealt with Christianity. He experimented with a variety of forms and was virtuosic in all of them: lyric poetry, odes, ballads, meditations, arguments, satires, conversations, and more. He used both formal and free verse. Auden was born in York, England in 1907 to an Anglican doctor and a nurse. His childhood was typical and he proved himself very early on as a bright child. He was educated at Oxford, first studying natural history and then switching to English. And his first volume of poems was printed in 1921. After graduating, he lived in Berlin for a while, exploring the cafe lifestyle and embracing his. He sent a few poems to Eliot, who was editor at Faber, and the older poet returned them with favorable comments. A new selection was selected for publication in 1930. His second volume, The Orators, was published in 1932. It yielded immediate fame. His name was given to a new generation of poets, Auden generation or the Auden group, who were concerned with political and ethical commitment, but a commitment that was tinged with ambiguity. They acknowledged modernism's influence but exemplified a desire to escape the poetic conventions of the age. Auden wrote three plays in Christopher Ashford in the early 1930s and published a new volume of poetry on this island in 1936. He traveled to Spain and Iceland and published writings on both places. He received the King's Gold Medal for Poetry in 1937. In 1935, he married Erika Mann to secure her a British passport. Before the outbreak of the Second World War, Auden immigrated to America and converted to Christianity. This event argued a significant change in his poetry, although sometimes critics overstate this division of an early and late period, also split by this move to America. He began a relationship that would last the rest of his life with Chester Coleman, an American poet. He lived in New York but traveled to Italy and Venice. He taught at several universities in New York as well as Michigan. He received two Guinnessian Awards in 1942 and 1945, the Pulitzer Prize in 1947, and the National Book Award. He wrote poetry as well as librettos while in America. In 1972, Auden returned to England to teach at Oxford. He relished the northern climate and he and Kalman subsequently established themselves in Austria. Several poetry collections were published in the 1960s and early 1970s. Auden died of heart attack in a hotel in Vienna in 1973. His last collection of poems was published posthumously in 1976 by his literary executor Edward Mendelssohn. Auden has been profoundly influential on poets of his own generation and those of subsequent ones. A prominent example of a poet indebted to Auden is John Upstreet. Auden is a mainstay in English courses in high schools and universities throughout the United States and England, and he is a critic's darling. The poem Autumn Song centered around the autumn season, an epitome of sadness and death. It brings noticeable changes to the world. With its arrival, leaves begin to fall from the trees and flowers start to wither and die. After describing its harmful impacts on the environment, He details how it affects our lives. Our beloved nurses also die, but children continue to be born, implying the cyclical nature of life, and death follows the same pattern. Similarly, the happy company of the neighborhood also becomes rare. Everyone stands on the same track from life to end, as there is no other path to follow. It makes other creatures suffer as well. The losses make people numb, lifeless, and desperate. Even angels refuse to come to the earth. Even angels refuse to come to earth, let alone the creatures. One can see hope, light, and happiness only in dreams. The transitions of life, death, and the impacts of the autumn season are the major themes of the poem. The speaker tries to paint the bleak, dark, and heart wrenching realities one witness on the arrival of autumn. Everything on the earth undergoes unexpected changes. It brings disasters to the world. First, the vibrant colors of the ground begin to disappear, the leaves, the flowers start to die. In comparison, human beings and other creatures go through the same phase. Even their colorful leaves turn into something dark and painstaking. To create a more powerful impact on this season, the speaker states that even the angels disappeared and the dead seems close to the living. Autumn Song is a representative poem of W.H. Auden due to its exploration of themes such as nature, isolation, and existential questions, as well as its use of vivid imaginary symbolism and ambiguity. It showcases Auden's unique style and his ability to capture complex emotions and ideas in his poetry. Thank you.